Ah, Halo, Halo, Halo. Gather round Mr. Negative and he'll tell you a story about a time when video games came in boxes, a time when video games were finished before they were released to the general public, a time when these genes were totally cool. This was also the time of Halo and the big green one-liner machine. Now, 30-year-old men all over the world have been hotly anticipating the return of the Master Chief, Spartan John 7. Having just completed the campaign, I was relieved because 343 have finally managed to deliver a very good Halo game. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't just a little underwhelmed and disappointed by some of the less adventurous story elements and just plain bad character writing. The first part of this video will be spoiler-free, then I'll do a section with what I consider to only be minor spoilers, and then for the last bit, I'll do some major spoilers that'll be discussing the end of the game. Timestamps below if you'd like to jump around. I'm guessing by now a lot of people have probably played the game, so I'm not going to waste too much time talking about the gameplay, but here's a quick rundown. The shooting is quite flawless. It's never been so fun mowing down hordes of aliens. There are a few occasions when I got a little frustrated with the gameplay loop, which can seem a little repetitive at times. Shut down 3 things so you can open a door, collect 3 power MacGuffins so you can power up a grav lift, that sort of thing. You do this, and this. Quite a lot. The open world too, while fun, seemed to come at the expense of some of the more fun, classic Halo set pieces. I think I would have preferred a more scripted structure, as the best moment in the game is a very short mission called The Road, which sees you ploughing through hordes of enemies in a tank to the classic Halo music. The open world lets you have your own fun with the sandbox, but leads to a lot of missions feeling less replayable than in previous titles. And there's no mission select anyway, so if you did want to replay a mission, you'd have to just go fuck yourself. Any complaints you've heard of the game looking a bit samey are all true, unfortunately. On the Halo ring there are trees and grass, and underground there is Forerunner architecture, and that's it. They both look great, but that's all you're getting. I hope 343 expands the ring over the course of the game's life. I was really hoping for deserts and snowy mountains, but it's clear in a lot of areas there was no time to include this level of variety. Boss fights are back and they're a lot of fun. They're not quite as imaginative as, say, Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4. The boss fights in those games are still the gold standard in my opinion, but they're well thought out and they break up the gameplay nicely. Now on to the minor spoilers section. And my main issue with the game, the characters. The character of Escharum is one of the most disappointing in the campaign. It was a red flag when he was revealed in a trailer a few months ago, and all he did was bark long, generic bad guy speeches. He does this the entire game, just popping up in a random holograph like, "Hey Chief, guess what? I killed a bunch of your mates the other day. Ah, what do you think of that?" There's no depth to these speeches, and the threats and taunts he comes out with assure us of just one thing. He's a bad guy.
I wish I could tell you it was difficult, but it wasn't.
This is a huge shame because Escherum's actual motivations have the potential to set him up as one of the most interesting villains the Halo franchise has ever seen. This is a warrior reaching the end of his life who's desperate to cement his name in legend by defeating the Chief or dying in a glorious battle with him. If you'll humour me for just a moment, imagine that instead of just blurting out his motivations at every opportunity, wouldn't it have been better to have Escharum keep them to himself, not even telling his fellow warriors of his desires? Then there could be a point in the story where the Chief is cornered and about to be defeated by one of the Spartan killers. Let's say this guy. Chief and this guy are getting into it, but this guy eventually gets the upper hand and is about to send Chief to Spartan heaven. It would be at this point that Escharum could swoop in, betray his ally, murdering him and saving the Chief. Now he would reveal his true intentions with a little speech about being immortalized in legend or whatever before turning on you for the final battle he's been looking for so long. Now that's not perfect, but fuck me, it's better than kidnapping the pilot and using him as bait like Mary Jane. It's been done to death in Bond and superhero movies, and as soon as he gets captured I was like, shit, we're gonna have to go save him. Fine, it's better than going to work. It's sometimes nice to have your expectations subverted just a little bit, but not too much. That's right, I'm looking at you, Ryan Johnson. The pilot, or Echo 216, is my next gripe actually. I don't hate his story arc of going from a cowardly non-believer to a full-on Master Chief mega fan, but the performance in general is pretty overacted to the point where it becomes unconvincing.
No, you! I can't stand it! You...
He's constantly in your ear saying, "You're never gonna do it, Chief, you're just a big green arsehole, you know that." The point of the pilot, I'm guessing, was to try and raise the stakes by making everything seem impossible, so it's all the more impressive when Chief finally does prevail. But it doesn't translate well onto the screen because we already know Chief is going to do it. Show us that the odds are impossible. Don't just have the pilot tell us, over and over. Chief himself and the weapon, or Mortana as I like to call her, are actually handled pretty well. Mortana's jokes don't always land, but having her around lightens up the campaign, and the issues of trust between the two are one of the better written story beats the game presents. They sprinkle in just enough emotion with the Chief without it getting too weird, and it's nice to see a more human version of our hero finally realised. This last little bit will discuss the very end of Halo Infinite, so if you haven't finished it yet, then hit subscribe and you can come back when you've finished it. Or if you don't give a fuck, stick around. As the game nears its conclusion, there's some pretty questionable revelations. After Mortana traps Cortana in the Halo ring, she gets a little visit from Atriox, who is attempting to take control of the ring from Cortana and unleash an ancient race known as the Endless. Cortana reveals through messages that she's been leaving behind for the Chief that she regrets her uprising and has sought to make it right by sacrificing herself and destroying the Halo ring to keep its powers out of Atriox's paws.
What?
Yep. She just turns good for some reason.
What?
Did I miss a fucking audio log or something? Hasn't Cortana killed billions by this point? Why has she just changed her mind all of a sudden? How is she so easily trapped down in the Halo with Atriox when she has a fleet of planet-destroying robots under her command? Fuck knows, because the game doesn't tell you. And don't tell me I have to read one of the books, or listen to all the audio logs in Halo 2 or something. Ugh, it's not the worst thing ever. But this redemption arc comes out of nowhere, and you can tell they had no idea what to do with Cortana after Halo 5. Despite all this, I enjoyed the game, and I'm looking forward to future content in this universe. But I just wish a little more nuance had been woven into the characters, and a little bit more care had been taken to make sure their motivations made sense. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the rant, and I'll catch you in the next one.